Hello and welcome to everybody to another episode of this series that we're doing on the future of project management. This is just some conversations that we're having with people in the industry of project management. And we're just talking about different things in project management innovation. We're talking to leading thinkers, practitioners, innovators, and discussing where project management is headed and what it takes to lead successfully in the age that we're in. So today I'm super honored to be with Ben and Ben. So we have Benjamin Chan and Benjamin Rebeske, and it's super fun. You guys actually got to meet in person last year at PMI Houston. So you are familiar with one another and you've done some things together. And so I've been eagerly awaiting this interview with the two of you to talk to you and kind of hear from you about the future of project management and where we are now. But we also have some super exciting news. Ben Chan does. He just received a new certification. So Ben, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So my name is Ben Chan. I am a project leadership executive coach, looking to go and help organizations with empowering their project managers with bigger, more effective project leadership skills. And that means working with the project managers, helping them work through mindset, their ways of thinking, provide them different ways that they can be resourceful and resilient so that they can go and deliver projects for their organization. And yeah, so recently just got my ACC, my Associate Certified Coach certification from the ICF. And yeah, just really happy to be here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, very exciting. And for those who don't know, Ben Chan is in Canada and Ben Rebeske is out in Arizona. Very, very sunny, very hot Arizona. And so very different places you guys are in. But what an honor to be able to be on virtually with you guys and talk to you and kind of pick your brains about some things. So thank you both.
Awesome.
We're going to start with Ben Chan. Ben, you have spent a lot of your career helping project managers become leaders. So what is one of the biggest mindset shifts that they need to make, professionals in this area need to make if they want to lead projects more effectively?
That's a really good question because I see a lot of different elements come up. So it might not necessarily be one single answer, but I'll say maybe just a few common, mindsets that I come across with that act as obstacles or barriers for them to really realize how they can understand their leadership is one is thinking they got to save it all. Right? That they are the sole savior for that entire project and trying to keep it all in and not delegating or perhaps putting just too much on their shoulders, right? So that's one aspect of just being that sole savior. That's one piece. And the other one is thinking they have to know it all. And that's somewhat tied together, but a little bit different in that they feel like I need to be the technical expert on all aspects of the project. And if I don't have that understanding, then I will fail. The last one is probably just around being overwhelmed, not knowing where to go and focus and prioritize, and having a different mindset of perspective sometimes to be able to go and tackle different problems. So I know you asked for one. I kind of gave three there, but those are the ones that I find come up. Yeah.
Ben, you have anything in regard to that? The other Ben?
I kind of have a curiosity question for you, Ben, before I get my perspective on that, because it resonates with me, those three items you just gave me. Would that be the same answer 4 years ago as it is today with AI being in play? What do you think?
I still think it's somewhat the same because I'll say for me and just my experience in project management is I'm very much a generalist. And that is a little bit of an odd duck inside of the industry where it's not like, hey, you are the specialist inside of construction project management or ERP implementation or this type of software delivery, right? I've done a lot of different projects across a lot of different industries, all of them varying from things such as, setting up a warehouse to C-suite board planning and software development and a whole bunch of different other things, which sometimes feels like they're very, completely different areas that have no commonalities. But when you boil it down, there's an amazing amount of resourcefulness and resilience it can tap into. And if we talk about how AI might change how we think about things is also think about how we can learn very quickly. Because one of the things that I help a lot of project managers with is they're diving into areas, perhaps problematic projects, or into new areas that they may not be super experienced with, right? And they need to learn very quickly, very fast so that they can add value. Now, it's different than just becoming the expert, but it's being able to have enough context that they can work within it. And that's where, even for me, and I'll say, using my ACC studying as an example, right, is I use Notebook LM to figure out how can I best learn within this time period so that I can go and pass the exam, right? So dumped a lot of different documents in there, right, within my own tenant. And a lot of them are public documents as well, right? Looking at the core competencies, the code of ethics, all those type of things. And I said, hey, create me a plan from now until the exam date that will allow me to go and learn all of these aspects, but give me also an extra week at the end to focus on just review. I don't want to learn anything new. I just want to be able to review. I also learn best through acronyms and slide decks and whatnot. Create me a plan and give me rest on Saturdays and Sundays. And so it would create me a daily schedule of keeping me on track of what I needed to learn during those days, the quizzes it could go and put on there. And then for other things where I wanted to learn a little bit differently, I would even say, hey, create me a podcast discussion about the problematic areas within the code of ethics that we might encounter. And so I could go and listen to it while I go and worked out and things like that, right? So there's a lot of different interesting things that it can go and enhance on it. But in terms of our own mindset, that's something I think that will stay somewhat consistent in trying to overcome those areas of being overwhelmed or feeling like you got to be everything to everyone, right? You still don't have to necessarily be those things, but there are definitely tools out there to help you feel a little bit more confident and allow you to go and learn a little bit faster to tackle those problems and add more value.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I want to piggyback on that for just a second. There's that saying, Doctor, heal thyself, right? And one of the challenges for me as being a project manager is applying project management to myself. I like
Right.
what you just shared about, one, optimizing the time that you do have to focus in your example on studying. And it could be for us, it could be our day job, our work, our projects for church or Boy Scouts, or it doesn't matter, our families, family planning events or what have you. I like the idea of using the technology to bring with me and sort of double dip. Like you're on the treadmill, I do the same thing, man. Guilty. Like, what am I listening up to? Now you can actually chat with some of the AI tools and have a conversation. And you can even, quote, be drafting documents while you're on the treadmill. Of course, my neighbors don't like that when, other treadmill people are there. But so use discretion, of course. But one thing you said that I'm guilty about, the doctor heal thyself thing is I'm all excited about these great tools personally. And I get into a flow state, but I don't deliberately book, okay, 5 o'clock, shut it down. I don't book weekends. I don't book, those deliberate wellness breaks. And so I kind of want to play on that because this is a string for our teams. Corbeau does, project management consulting, but it's technology forward. And we're playing in this danger zone of all this neat capability. And we're trying to temper the natural expectation of both our executives and customers and even ourselves to not do, wow, I have AI, I can do so much more. It's not about more, it's quality. Like, I need to discipline myself around, this is still my window, or I'm going to be like Ben and I'm going to be waking up one day and I didn't have any weekend and now it's Monday. So what are your thoughts about making, again, the Dr. Heal Thyself thing? How do I, as a project manager, change my psychology to turn it on myself, to take care of myself? What would you recommend?
Well, I think first of all, there's a lot of introspection of like, what do you need in order to recharge yourself? And for some people, maybe it's still work, but it can still be creative and that helps them recharge. Some of it is like, no, I need to be checked out. Emails are off and everything like that for 2 days, right? It's the weekend. And maybe that works it. Or maybe you need to make sure your evenings are blocked off to be able to do it. And I think a lot of people don't work from that inner portion first of understanding what they need, and they let the work necessarily dictate it of like, oh, there's now a break in work, so I'll take a break now, right? And instead it's driven by all the other external needs. But at the same time, there also needs to be a certain amount of balance, because I'll say sometimes it might work into that area of entitlement of like, no, I will always work from home and I only work from 12:55 till 2:30 every day, right? And it's kind of like, wow, that's not doable either, right? So there is need to be there does need to be a balance to be struck, but I think in the whole larger scheme of things is understanding what is it that actually helps you recharge, and how do you actually build that into your daily schedules, your routines, as well as setting the expectations and boundaries. And it's interesting enough that I feel like it's changed a lot, even from, we'll say, 10 years ago, and then pandemic, and then even until now, right? Where we had email that comes in, where before you had to get, real physical mail to be able to answer it. There's pauses already integrated into it. And then you have email where you can respond at any time of the day. We hit COVID, and now everyone's online, where I used to remember going into the office and people would actually set aside, 10 minutes before or after the meeting where it'd be empty, right? Why? Because you have to walk to the next meeting office, the next meeting room, and you can't have them back to back. But with COVID and all of the meeting technology we have right now, you can instantly join the moment that another meeting ends, and there's no break in between, right? So we continue to go and lose a lot of this, we'll say, quote unquote, idle time. But then what's the cost of all of those things, right? And instead, it pushes us to go and almost be like 24/7 on. And it's then up to us to understand what is it that actually makes us effective, because there's going to be the law of diminishing returns where you're going to get burnt out. You're going to be out for months. Your team could be out for months because they're just not being productive anymore. And to your point, it's not focused on quality, right? And sometimes the hard part, I think, for a lot of management and sometimes executives is they look at things of what can we measure, what's tangible. And the quality sometimes isn't necessarily directly seen. And instead, they go and measure things like time. Time is very easy to go and measure. How many hours did you spend in the office? How many hours did you spend on this task, right? When did you go and reply? All of those feel like they are tangible things that make it seem like it's effective when maybe it's not.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And to kind of go back to one of the earlier things you said, this resonates for my personality type. I'm not a workaholic for the sake of being a workaholic. I think it's that creativity. Like, one of the things I enjoy is actually experimenting. There's a new plugin, or there's a a new agent tool or something, and I want to kind of experiment with it. How could I use this to automate dashboard creation or something like that? Well, that may or may not be on the clock. You said something that resonated, which is that kind of creativity does recharge me. So now, do I still need to stop and go for a hike or ride the bike? Sure, absolutely. But I think I feel less guilty now knowing that it's okay if it's, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to make those model rockets, you paint them, you sand them, you launch them, the whole thing. That's kind of how I feel when I'm playing around with some of these newer tools. Some of them are just throwaway, right? You totally ruin the model rocket, and you just grab another kit and build another one. But it helps me as a professional to not feel guilty that I'm not shutting down cold. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I agree too. And I wanna back up a little bit too. So one of the things that I find, because I've worked remote so long, is that, I can just get up in the morning, walk from my bedroom to my office, and then walk to the kitchen or whatever. And so it does get I can get in a tunnel and just stay in here and keep doing and doing and doing. And I have really this last year had to really, really focus on, okay, these are the times when I'm not, I don't work on, Sunday, and preferably not on Saturday if I don't have to. And just setting those boundaries for myself, because I'm again, like, I'm I wouldn't say a workaholic so much as like I want all the things done before I can rest. I have that problem both professionally and personally. And so before I can take a rest and take a break, I want to know that everything is done. And my problem is nothing is, it's not all ever done. Right. And so I'll just kind of keep spinning that mental wheel of, oh, well, if I just run in there and do this, and with the office being in the house, it's so easy to do that. Right. And so I've just kind of mentally had to change my mindset that no, it is my office and it is in the house, but it is not open all the time, and I cannot go in there all the time. Or I can come in there, but I'm not turning not the TV, the computer on, or whatever the case is there, to have some kind of rest to my brain. And because I'm very much same been like you, like I want to learn all the things, and so I'll sit there and just keep messing with it and messing with it until I get it. And so I'm glad, other men, that you brought that up, because it's important. It's important to know. And also the meeting to meeting to meeting is so easy to get caught up in that, right? Especially when we're remote, because it's just like, oh, can you just hop on? Oh, can you just hop on here? And it's like, sometimes it's okay just to say, no, you know what? I can't today. I can't hop on. And to also, I've learned the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 months or so, just to block time. That's just my dedicated, I got to get things done. I have to block this time. And then there's some very high level people that could potentially come in on that time. But generally speaking, that's very protected time for me to get my work done. So let's see, either of you can take this one. What role does leadership play in determining whether the project ultimately succeeds or fails?
So for clarification, Amanda, when you say leadership, you mean like our executive sponsors or stakeholders, or do you mean us as leaders in the
It could
project?
be either or, I believe, but primarily you could stick to us as the ones leading the projects.
Okay, thank you. I'll do a short one real quick, Ben, if
Sure.
you don't mind. I think the responsibility of leadership, and I think this is a pivot from what it used to be. Most of us, let's say you're a CFO, right? You're driven by the books, by month end closed, you're a comptroller, you've got to meet regulatory requirements. I get all that. And so you want tangible, real proven results, and you want repeatable, reliable processes. I get that mindset. If you're a leader, if you're an executive, you're a sponsor, director, vice president, totally get that. I think where things need to pivot, and this is a challenge to leaders and program and project managers too, interacting with your executive stakeholders, is to allow for a little bit more experimentation right now. And it's going to seem counterintuitive. Also invest more in the learning of your people. Now, in my mind, I'm hearing, oh, but that's an operational expense, Ben. I can't capitalize that. It's not building something new. I get all that. But I think we're in an age now where this is such a great opportunity, such a technological inflection point, if you will, that you have an opportunity to, instead of just meeting the numbers, maybe even reducing headcount so you can plug in a couple of AI agents that replace those people. I would argue that that's going to maintain systems, SOPs, performance at best. But what if you were able to work as a leader, project sponsor, and invest a little bit in this concept of a J curve? Take your team, invest in them, get some learning, get some key coaching, mindset changes around the use of new technology to become self-actualized, top-performing project managers, project participants, et cetera. That's going to be a little bit expensive because there's going to be a learning curve. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to use the wrong tool. We got to cross-train the team and build a culture. And then you're going to catch back up. And then you're going to have 5, 10, 15 people on your project team that are AI agent savvy, right? They are safety, security, communication, regulatory compliant a lot more because they're using agents within right guardrails. They've taught each other how to use these agents consistently. And you're going to have great growth when you come out of that J curve. So I think that's my change to a leadership modality. It's not what's my milestone, what's my deadline, why can't you do? It was kind of what Ben was saying earlier about measuring time. Be careful about just measuring time. Do we still measure it? For sure. Timesheets, absolutely. Is there an opportunity to give yourself and your team a little bit of investment right now and create a top performing team in a new and exciting age? I really,
Yeah.
we've talked about this before, Amanda, you and I, like this is a big deal. I remember when I was young, internet came out, we had AOL, and suddenly my grandma understood the internet. She understood I can send an email. Remember when Skype came out? It was like face to face conversations long
Yes.
distance, right? That's this kind of change. The average common team member can become AI savvy. You just gotta make the uncomfortable decision, trust the process, and make that a J curve investment. But that's my thought.
Yeah, I actually love that you brought that up, and was kind of secretly hoping that that would be your answer, because I know we've talked about that a lot before. I think training your teams is so important. I think, Ben,
Totally agree.
you're doing your own training as well in gaining new knowledge and new information and certifications to help you better serve your clients. And I just think overarching, it's so important. And I think like we've talked about before, is there's some organizations and people and leaders of teams who are kind of missing that, because it's like, oh, well, we don't have the funds, or we don't have the money, or we don't have the capital to pay people to learn something. Well, you don't not have it. Like, you're
Right.
gonna have to do it, or
Right.
you're going to lose the good people, because the good people are gonna go learn this on their own, and then they're gonna go somewhere else. And so that's a whole nother soapbox for a whole nother day. Ben, you have anything on that? On just the determining whether the project ultimately succeeds or fails? Like, is there anything like that, like training your people for instance, or do you have anything to piggyback on that specific thing that helps leadership better assist the teams in succeeding rather than failing? I know there's outside factors that we have no control over, but
Yeah. And, like any good answer, my answer will be, well, it depends. And why is that? And I'd say I've seen many different projects succeed despite
sure.
bad leadership from their PMs, right? That is something that if the team decides to go and step up, and even though the leader's kind of just wandering around in the woods and not focusing and not gathering the team how they should, other people might step up as well to be able to help the team get what needs to get done. So leadership in itself, I think, will help improve those odds of the projects being able to succeed, being able to go and reach that completion. And so I think that, the point you brought up around how organizations are looking at their investment into their people versus viewing it as an expense is something that is a hard equation that I think a lot of them are tackling right now. There's a lot of short-term gain to be able to say, hey, we got AI to be able to do a lot of these things. We don't need these many people. And then they're going to reach the end where they're going to say, well, you know what? Over the short term, yes, we saved a lot of money. We have AI running a lot of these things, but now we're also not growing and we don't have anyone that knows how our systems and operations and all those processes work. Why? Because we let them all go. And this is happening in a lot of different organizations right now. And so I think as leaders, it's on us to be able to help provide not just the tactical view of how are we going to get things done, but what does it mean? What is that strategic impact that we're going to have on short-term, long-term impacts, and pulling that all together? And so for me, I think when I work with other leaders and helping to improve their leadership, it's not necessarily just training and saying, hey, just do this and you'll be fine, right? It's understanding how do they utilize their special skills within their environment, within their context, with the certain technologies and stakeholders that they have to do what they need to do most effectively in the best way to get the right results, right? And within that, there's obviously a ton of different questions involved with it. But I think that's where the beauty of it is that there's not just one great way to go and do it. There are a lot of different approaches that can be used, and really tapping into each person's resiliency, their own resourcefulness is something we all have to go and do. And I always use that as the analogy of like Batman, right? He doesn't solve every crime or defeat every villain in the exact same way. Because one, that'd be boring. That'd be a boring story I have to read each time. Like, don't worry, he's just going to do that. But there's a decision to be made as project managers, as project leaders. What is the best tool to use? What is the best approach to be able to go and use that? And he's going to use different things from his utility belt, as well as formulate different plans as well to be able to tackle the problem, which one, definitely makes it more interesting, but two, it helps to build that natural resourcefulness that we all want as leaders.
Yeah, fantastic answer. Ben, you have anything else on that before we move forward?
No, I love that. Thank you, Ben. That was great.
And that you really just kind of led us right into the next topic, which we kind of been back and forth on as well. But when we're talking about the AI, artificial intelligence, becoming pretty much a part of every profession, where do we generally see helping project managers? And where do we believe that the human leadership remains irreplaceable? And we talked a little bit about that, but let's go a little bit deeper into that. And for a couple of reasons. One, because it was on the question sheet, but also because I was having a little different conversation this morning with somebody else, and we were talking about how there's a lot of industries that are not allowing their people to utilize AI or learn AI because of security reasons, natural reasons, reasonable reasons. And so we can kind of speak to that a little bit. Are they holding back their teams or not? Is it the smart and ethical thing to do at this point? Because there's some industries that, in healthcare and stuff, we can't let all that information out into the great unknown. And so either one of you can take that first and just have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, maybe I'll just quickly start off with that. And that AI, I think, is a very tricky thing because I view it as almost like this new star employee that that's kind of come on, and they're just kind of scaring everyone, right? They're trying to grab everything off your desk and things like that. And you're like, whoa, don't touch that. And what are you doing, right? How do I trust that you're going to go and do the right thing? And it's created an interesting conundrum, right? So we have things around confidentiality, things around privacy, as well as, reliability and trust. How do I know it's not hallucinating? And how do we know that it's not doing what it's not supposed to be doing or going into areas it's not supposed to, right? Because some of those guardrails may not be as secure as we necessarily think of it is. Even if we think of guardrails for cars and highways, some of them still get broken and they still go off cliffs, right? They're only helping as best they can to be able to do it, but it doesn't actually prevent it. So when we talk about the ethics of using AI and whatnot, I mean, I boil it down to that as people, I hope we're able to go and continue to go and learn as best possible, right? And AI can definitely be helpful. And I think, most people agree, hey, it's not here to go and necessarily replace us, but we want it to be able to assist us as best as possible. However, that's not how the marketplace is necessarily looking at it. They are replacing people with it. And so even when we look at things of like, from a project management perspective of meeting minutes, making schedule changes, maybe recording some of the risks and whatnot, right? Sure, you can go and have AI to do it, but who are we cutting out to be able to do that? We're cutting out probably entry-level project coordinators. And how are those people from entry-level project coordinators, how are they going to learn the experience to become seasoned project managers, right? Now, all of a sudden, we're creating this weird talent gap where, at some point, I'm not going to be doing project management anymore. All the senior guys are not going to be able to do it. And those are the people vetting through all the hallucinations, trying to make judgment calls and the data coming back from the AI agents. And when those people are gone, who's then left to be able to vet whether it's good or bad, right? Because people coming in new, they won't know what's good or bad and maybe just accept all of it, which can have possibly some very bad consequences that come along with it, right? So I think the onus is how do we continue to go and use it with people? But the reality of it is that the marketplace isn't viewing it like that. I don't necessarily have a solution other than I personally try and grow other project leaders myself on the projects that I work on, right? Yes, we have AI, but I want them to go through the meeting minutes and I want them to put together the risks. I want them to understand the implications, and then we can talk through it and understand, well, what is the logic of thinking between those type of things? And if anything, if AI comes back with it, is saying, how does that compare to our thinking? Where were we wrong, or where was something interesting brought up? What are the different types of data points that all of a sudden we have to consider that maybe AI didn't consider that we thought of, right? If a decision feels bad that comes back, why does it feel bad for us, yet this is what AI comes back to us? There's probably something missing there from our gut feeling or expertise that suddenly signals that, and we got to go back and look at what is our criteria, what are our trade-offs, what are the things that maybe we didn't consider, but suddenly it's bubbling up inside of a feeling that says, ooh, I don't know if we should go and do this. So yeah, maybe I'll hand it over to you, Ben.
I like that. And someone who's a coach, maybe you can give, and I welcome your opinion on this. So for Project Success Academy and for our consulting advisors, we do something similar, right? You are expected to be able to do it by hand before you just throw something at AI and see what it spits out. And for those of us who've ever tried something that says, file my taxes for me, enter, you're going to get something wildly different than if you had, filled out the online forms a little bit yourself, marked some key, deviations and adjustments, where to find all your receipts for the, and I know no one wants to talk about taxes, but I use that as an example to say you can take something that would seem super simple and still recognize there are still baby steps and deviations in the journey to get to an end game. In that example, filing your taxes, that looks and feels correct as though you've done it the old way, even if you did it, QuickBooks or something online, Easy File or what have you. So what we do is a lot of Teams type sessions, or even by yourself, record a session of how you wanted to build your weekly steering committee slide deck, right? The first one is built by you, and you can record it. And we kind of do, I joke about this, I call it the captain's log for all the Star Trek geeks out there, right? If you've ever watched an episode of like Next Generation or even the older ones, in Star Trek, for whatever reason, when they're piloting a shuttle and they're going to land on the Enterprise, they're saying, okay, reducing speed to 0.01 impulse I've got the impact dampeners on, raising the opening gates and putting up the atmospheric shield. Like they'll literally be talking about what they're doing while they're doing it. And you're a podcaster and a teacher yourself, Ben, and you do that when you give instructional videos and you're giving helpful advice. We kind of are that talking head. I'm trying to teach folks, every project manager, it doesn't matter. This is a skill that you're going to want to have, because anything that you can do can become a transcript. And in some cases, there are AIs that'll take images from what you've produced, snapshots of transcripts of the video that you make, to try to understand how you made a PowerPoint slide, look, feel, color, sizing. It'll look at content, if you've got educational things about the bullets that you had, without having to have the original data source, right? So if you can learn to talk about it while you do it, not even teach it necessarily, but talk about it while you do it, including all the mistakes, then later you can circle back, work with AI, and train it as though it was your project admin. Now, I'm not trying to say project admins can be replaced. Totally different conversation. This is an analogy, because I don't think they can. I think you're right, Ben. I think that's a misunderstanding in the industry, and a very important role that needs to continue to be nurtured and staffed in organizations. Yet we can use AI as though it were a student. And for those of you that follow, if you're using Codex, the ChatGPT AI automation engine, or Claude Code or Claude Cowork, some of the other agentic AI tools, you can create these concepts called a skill file, if you will. And the software will do it with you. Say, hey, I want to create a skill on how to create my weekly steering committee. And you'll load the video, you'll load the transcript, and then you'll say, generate a first copy and show me a prototype. How would that look? And you go back and talk to it and say, I can see where you made a mistake. You say, no, every week this has to change. It can't be static. It's not only a little bit of fun, because I'm a geek, right? Star Trek geek. But you can teach AI to learn. And the best part is, by doing it, you're self-actualizing your own project management skills. So whether you're a project admin learning how to create these artifacts, risk logs, you're creating charters, whatever it is, by teaching the AI, not just throwing it a job and say, go make this, by being a part of it, you're investing in yourself, because then you know what continuous improvement is. You know what to do next time for the next project, or what to teach other new team members when they get hired, etc. So I liked your concept about doing it by hand first. I think that there's a hybrid of that, but do not skip of building it in the real 3D world before you just throw it into this digital AI world.
Yeah,
Does
I
that make
really like
sense?
that. I like that concept too of, I'm sure, well, I don't know, maybe this is how my brain works, but now I catch myself and I'm kind of purposefully doing it. It's like, oh, well, I could just look that up, or I could just have the AI do it. And so
You can.
now I'm like trying to train my brain. No, think about it a little bit first before you just throw it into an AI and ask it. Process through, because now I think, because we do, we have the awesome opportunity that we have been trained, and that we're working on all these different platforms and trying to learn them, and that's all good. But I also think that there's times now, like, I find myself just like, that's my automatic go-to, instead of just stopping, like Ben said, and thinking it through or brainstorming it with someone else, and having that human element of it, and making my brain work on it. And so I don't want my brain to go to mush. So I have to kind of do both ends of it. I mean, I've found that happening a little bit lately. And so I'm like, no, stop, just think things through a little bit. So Ben Chan, you coach professionals at many different stages in their careers. So let's talk about what common habits or characteristics you consistently see among the leaders who are the most successful, or the
Those that are
most
most
that
successful.
failed.
Yeah, well, I guess we can flip flop between the
Yeah,
two
you
if
could
we'd
you could
like.
do both of those.
Well, I think part of the mindset piece is being able to go and focus and prioritize, right? Know what is important, and then saying, okay, yeah, that's what I want to go and do. On the flip side of that, we talked about a little bit of being overwhelmed. There's just too much, and they're trying to tackle a little bit of everything, and nothing gets done, right? So those that are able to go and find what's important and be able to focus on it, that's always great. And I think the other portion is understanding perspectives, and this really goes into the emotional intelligence side of it, right? of, hey, it's not necessarily I'm always right, but what is the other feeling or thoughts from the other side, right? From maybe if there's a stakeholder conversation that's gone bad, what is their perspective on it versus saying, they're just hard to go and work with. They're horrible people. Never want to go and work with them, right? And yet they may have very valid reasons as to why they are making the decisions that they are, why they're behaving the way they are. And that empathy portion of it, and let's not confuse that with necessarily agreeing with what the other person has, right? That is a common mistake that a lot of people make, is like, oh, well, if I empathize with them, then I must agree with their perspective. It's like, no, I want you to understand it. You can still have differing stances, but it's just understanding their perspective, because that helps with communication. If it gets deeper into negotiation, right? Trying to resolve some of these conflicts and arguments, right? Those will be a key piece to be played in all of that. Otherwise, you will come off as a dictator of just do what I say because I think I'm right. And maybe that's not even the most important thing to focus on, right? So empathy, I think, is one of the huge things that I've seen in really good leaders. Yeah, I'll stick with those two for now, but I think
that's
Benjamin,
so fantastic.
do you have another one to add on? Yeah.
Yeah, and Ben can take it away too, but I want to capitalize a little bit on what you said there, is that we can empathize with somebody. We don't have to agree with them, right? We can still get along through it. We can help each other through it. Ben and I may be working on something together, and he may just be completely and totally overwhelmed. And, he can't focus on what we need to focus on. And I'm not saying this is the case, but it could be with anybody. Or you could have a team member that feels like things are changing too rapidly and they don't know what's going on. And so they're kind of, spiraling in that. You can empathize with that. We don't necessarily have to agree on it, but we do need to work together and let's work this out. How can we get along together to fix how you're feeling about it? Because how somebody's feeling about a situation, especially, a project or portion of a project, may not be the reality of what's really going on. They may have been, just misinformed or have misinformation, and then having these big feelings about that. And so we need to stop and take a minute and empathize with what's going on with that and try to understand where they're coming from. So I really like that you brought that up. That's a very valid point. And Ben, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, it's a big shocker. I'm going to come to it from a place of an analogy, I guess. Since in my 30 years now of leading projects and programs, I've had a lot of failures. Those days are hard to get through. Getting released from a project, I can't think of a more public way to feel more, disappointed to be sure, but probably ashamed. What did I do wrong? And it gets back to Ben's earlier comment about taking these things all on your shoulders. I think what this likens it to is every project manager to some degree. I mean, if you're really in it to get to project success, I would liken that role to being an entrepreneur. Now, it doesn't mean you're the CEO of your project, so to speak, but maybe you're, an equity owner. You own 5% of the project as a company or whatever. You've got such a stake in it that it's your baby. It's yours. You have that sense of conviction about its importance, its success. It's going to make life better, faster, smarter, safer, more efficient. There's some improvement. There's some reason behind a project. People had to research the value prospect of that project. And then they said, Amanda, Benchan, I trust you to captain this boat. This has to happen for our new clinic, right? This has to happen for these new safety procedures. This has to happen for compliance so people can keep their jobs. That's a big deal. And so we can take that on our shoulders to be sure. But if instead you treat it a little bit like you're an entrepreneur, yes, you have that stake. And yes, you will probably have that sense of ownership, conviction, and passion. But it allows you to remember it's not just you. You have this team of talent that you can assemble. You have resources that you can leverage, that you have to be so creative and so adaptive. And by doing so, set an example that culture starts with you, right? The team dynamic starts with you. How often you communicate in the ways you communicate starts with you. If you think of yourself as that entrepreneur, and again, it could be a CEO analogy, it could be a VP, it doesn't matter. But in your mind, if you're thinking about, I have to set the pace, the standards, and the understanding, Now that's a double-edged sword. I could see Ben kind of making a little bit of a smirk there, because you can get yourself in trouble with that over sense of ownership. And instead, what I would say is the last reason why I feel like this is projects are entrepreneurial is the bad days as much as the good days. Learn and adjust, and just know, I got to tell you guys, there are days, there are weeks, there are months in some big transformation projects, for example, when you just feel like you cannot buy a win. Like it just feels like nothing's going right. Everything's over budget. The clients and the stakeholders are all upset. The regulators are wanting an audit now to catch up on why everything is status red. You have to be able to, yes, have passion, and you have to care about those things, but you got to get yourself back into problem solving mode. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's what Ben was saying, and you were saying, Amanda, you can't just turn off the emotions, but you have to learn how, as part of your role, you need to understand them, honor them, and then find a way to continue to move forward. I always roll my eyes when people say, oh, being an entrepreneur takes grit. Really? Okay. It doesn't mean just stick through something to stick through something. It's getting the right coaching. It's having the right mindset. It's knowing how to take care of your wellness. And I'll close with this thought, because you set the tone. If you can do that with yourself when things are terrible, you can do that when things are great, your team can manage it too. They can see you managing it. They can learn by example. They can help you improve on your methods, and they can scale it to the team. So it's not an easy analogy, so to speak, but it is extremely rewarding. And I don't know, play around with that thought next time you feel like everything is falling apart, or you feel like you're not making a difference. I would challenge you. I think you are. I bet people appreciate what you do. They look to you. They listen to you, even on the bad days. So don't forget that. Just remember, it's you being an entrepreneur and a leader means there's got to be some bad days and some really, really bad feelings. It just is
And
the
there's
way the
going to be
journey.
some things that you don't want to do. We've talked about
Oh
that a
yeah.
little bit too. There's going to be parts of projects and that it's not your niche. It's not your thing. You don't really want to do it, and you got to get up and you got to get through it. And that's the same for all of us, right? We're all very different. We have very different intelligence levels and abilities and capabilities. And you may say to me, either one of you, hey, I need you to do this. And I'm like begrudging, like, oh, I really, really don't want to do this. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability and get through it. And then there's a sense of accomplishment at the end of it as well. But I think as leaders, sometimes we need to be empathetic to the fact that we're giving people things that maybe not be in their wheelhouse. You still have to do it. You can do it. But also pushing people a little bit past their limits sometimes, so they realize that they are capable of some of these things, but being empathetic through all of that. So
You bet.
very valid points. All right. Well, I want to be respectful of you guys' time, and we're getting a little long-winded, which is not unusual. But so I have one last question for the both of you, and you can kind of think through it. But looking ahead 5 to 10 years in project management, what excites you most about what the future of project management appears to hold at this point? And what advice would you give someone entering the profession who wants to remain relevant and growing as a leader? And we've talked about some of this, but let's hone in on that just a little bit. And Chan, you can go first this time.
Yeah, no, I think this be interesting, because I think in terms of where I see things in 5 to 10 years, I would say the human skills would become more important than ever. All of the technical skills that we're learning now and whatnot, people can create AI agents around it, all those type of things. But your leadership skills, your ability to communicate, your ability to relate to one another as either, team members or as people, it will become more and more significant in how that plays. And so maybe you don't like politics. That's okay. But that doesn't mean you can't make friends. Hopefully people like making friends, right? So I think that's going to be like one of the biggest things that comes into it. And in terms of for those aspiring PMs going into the industry, what do they need to work on? I think is, understanding the technical pieces, and then also understanding the tools that are going to be available to you. And this is really tough because there's so many tools and different things that come into play, but understand how they kind of work, right? At a general perspective, how you can be able to experiment with it, use it against your own personal projects, right? To see how it works with that. And again, integrate those leadership skills in. And if you don't know how that works inside of the business world, maybe you're fresh out of university, you're completely green and a rookie trying to understand how that works, have conversations, find a mentor, find a coach, find someone that's able to go and give you some of that insight so that you can go and build upon it.
Fantastic points. And I'm going to, Ben, I'm going to let you piggyback on that.
Yeah, super quick. I think in 5 years, in short, project management is going to be a burgeoning job title. It's going to change from what it is today. It's going to be more like what Ben talked about: EQ, awareness, business savvy, and value creation. All the things that really a PM was meant to be back in the day. But I think just because of the nature of the business had become more about, the paperwork, the charters, the meetings, the and whatnot. And there's the stigma for those of us that have been PM a long time that, oh, PMs, aren't you guys just supposed to take meeting notes and tell me what to do? No, absolutely not, right? We're not schedule pushers. We don't yell at you just because your status is red and all of that. We are actually meant to be value facilitators, right? We have the privilege of taking these chartered projects from beginning to end. We are custodians of project success. I also think, as a side effect of that these stats we've seen in the past of project success, or really I should say project failure rates, being like 65, 70% globally on some of these stats from McKinsey and PMI and others, I think project failure is going to go down because you're going to have more people that have the mindset it takes to lead projects to success, backed with these guardrails, technologies, and automations that are going to take care of some of the busy work. What if we could all make informed decisions that much more quickly? Right? A lot of my setbacks in projects have been, I can't get the steering committee together for a week. By then, it's too late. I needed their help yesterday. Right? So even with escalations and phone calls, sometimes you can't make, timely decisions. Future of project management is very bright. We're going to be decision facilitators and success facilitators. It's just really going to spike.
Yeah, both fantastic answers. And I think you're right. I think that the human centric part of all of it is going to be the most important part of it. So thank you both for being on today. I really appreciate it. Ben, I can't tell you enough how grateful we are for you agreeing to be on here. I know we planned this out quite a bit ago, and I know your schedule's busy, and so we appreciate you so much. We'll put your information so people can get a hold of you if they are not already, which they should be. They can connect with you on LinkedIn and your website and all the things that you do. And so we're just so grateful for you having the conversation with us and spending the time with us. And yeah, so I hope you guys have this Friday. And so I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and you take some time to rest and recuperate. And I think Ben Chan, you said you're getting ready to go on vacation. So good for you. And I hope you guys have a wonderful time on vacation as well.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you.